When was the last time you worked on production code that did not use a version control system? That's exactly the point I'm trying to highlight. It's a sin. We never ever do that. And VCS is a tool we developers need at some point of developing our code. But what if you are not a command line person or you want more than what the command line offers? Let's see how IntelliJ IDEA can help. Hi everyone, thanks for joining in. I'm your host, Mala Gupta. And today I'm pleased to welcome Dmitry, Product Manager at JetBrains. Dmitry leads the development of VCS support in IntelliJ IDEA. Hi Dmitry, it's a pleasure to have you present today.
Hello Mala, hello everyone. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Today, Dmitry will demonstrate all the cool ways in which IntelliJ IDEA can help us developers work with VCS, the options that are available, common and not so common Git tasks, and how IntelliJ IDEA helps, and much, much more. But before I let Dmitry take the stage, let me share some quick housekeeping details. Please use the YouTube chat to post your questions. Dmitry would pause between the session to answer your questions, so you don't really have to wait till the end of the session to post your questions. And I and Ruslan from the JetBrains team will answer the questions as you post them. The session will be recorded and it will be hosted to our YouTube channel. So if you haven't already subscribed to our channel, do that now. And if you like today's session, please do not miss to like this video. Dmitry, I would let you take the stage now, adding your screen to the stream.
Thank you, Mala. Some disclaimer before I start. Mala mentioned that I'm going to show you all the ways to work with version control. No, I don't think that I will cover everything because, well, the support is pretty huge. What I would like to do is pretend I have some task that requires me interacting with version control and go through the steps. Showing most of the features, most of the things that IDEA could help you with, but there are many more. There are plugins you can install and extend the existing features. So keep in mind that this video would not cover all and will be the ultimate guide to version control in IDEA, but it should give you a good idea of how it works. Also, another part of the disclaimer, all this functionality I will show is basically available in a community version. It's not something tied to IntelliJ IDEA Ultimate because version control Git integration is the same in both. And also, we do not have any bundled Git, and IntelliJ IDEA always relies on the command line Git client to be installed in the system. And if there are things that you cannot do via the UI somehow, there is always a way to get it done using the command line because it's already there. And the useful thing to know is that IDE logs all the Git operations it does in the specific Git console, which I will show later. So if you would like to get more insights of what exactly is done behind the skins, you can do this by checking out the console. So having said that, let me start with my small demonstration. We will start from the welcome screen to get the project. So let's assume that I was assigned a task to extend some parsing library with some additional features. So let's get that code first. We will use the built-in cloning feature. So the code is hosted on the GitHub. So let's go in there and log in GitHub. So now we have the list of the repositories available for this account. I'm interested in this one. So it's the Maven-based one. So IDE offers you to confirm that you trust the sources, because running Maven could potentially execute malicious scripts. So when importing Maven project, keep that in mind. So this is some tasks, but basically is not quite relevant for our today presentation. So let me close this one. Here is the project structure. To start with, let's see what the project is about, how it has been developed. Let's go to the log view. In the Git tool window, the log view, it basically shows all the commits in the repository, all the authors and branches, local and remote. Double-clicking on a branch allows me to filter the list by the specific branch. There is also a head node there that basically also always refers to the currently checked out branch. And the current branch is indicated in the lower right corner here. Clicking on that branch brings the pop-up that allows me to quickly switch between branches and basically do some operations with them. Okay, so here is like the project. There are several branches. So the master is the main one, and we currently are on the master, and it's in line with the remote region. There are other branches ahead. Recently, I implemented another similar task. So by adding a property, let's see what has been done. So we open edit diff in the editor. So with current screen resolution is a bit tight. There was like a property edit. So let me collapse the diff so it show only change fragments. By default, it shows the entire file. So we see that I added a couple fields and methods getter and setter. And also in the reset method, I specified how it should be reset to the initial state. So I would need to do, let's pretend that I would need to do the same thing for the current task. So I would need to add another one, another property. Let's get there a bit later. So before we get to implementing another property, let's see what else we can see in the log view. So here, I'm browsing through commits. You can see the diff changes as long as I move selection. It basically follows the selection in the changes browser. So I can basically quickly browse through diffs by selecting individual files in here. No need to open separate diff for each one. I also noted that there is some strange commit, and this commit message does not correspond to what actually has been done in it. So it would be probably a great idea to change the commit message, but for some reasons I cannot do this. The reason for that is that master is basically considered by default a protected branch. That means protected from overwriting, so one cannot force push there. So we do not allow operations that would require you to force push after that, namely changing commit messages, any other rebases. It is basically configured in the Git node, and the list of protected branches is synced from GitHub. Okay, so as I mentioned, I already implemented a property in one of the branches. So I can do the same in the same class. So I would need to navigate there. We can use jump to source to open the file to quickly find it. Okay. So here, let's add a property. Let's call it test. We need to define the default state. It will be true. Also, we will probably need getter and setter for that. here you noticed a typo. Let's fix it along with the changes. I'm using rename, save rename, and basically ID. Renamed all the references. Sorry, need to adjust some settings with interface. Okay, better now. So we can see in the commit tool window, we can see the change files. Double clicking on something or calling Command D opens the diff. Basically, it allows us to see what has happened, and it follows selection. So let's get back to the config and finish the task with adding the property here. So I would need to do a reset section as well. Let ID help me with adding the field. Let me put it somewhere close to others. Okay, so looks like I'm done with implementing this property. Let's try basically committing everything. So let me select this. So I would like to commit all the changes here. It specifies some commit message. So I'm starting to commit process, and ID perform the checks before commit, before was the background process, and we see the indications here. So there's found several warnings. Let's see what warnings these are, and if this is something related to my changes here. Well, with like a quick look, it doesn't seem related, so probably it is fine to ignore this for now and commit anyway. All these basically pre-commit options are configured under this show commit options configuration here. So you can select what ID should do before it commits. By default, it analyzes code with some default profile, which can be configured to a different one. And checks to do. If you would like it to do other stuff, you also could basically select the checkboxes, and this way, before every commit ID, you could format code, optimize inverse, or whatever. So currently, a commit anyway. So if we check the log, here it is, changes. And I noticed that looks like I accidentally committed additional changes in here that basically should have been done in separate commits. So fixing the typo, I would like to have fixing the typo to be a separate commit. Let's see how we can fix this. We can basically undo the commit and do it once again, selecting only the right files this time. So it was fig. From here, we need to deselect chunks we are not interested in and select only those which we do want to commit here in this series, in this commit. So let it be fix typo after rename. Again, it performs analysis. If I don't want to do this, I can basically remove the analyze code, and next time it won't do any analysis for me. Okay, and now I would like to commit this one. This is the changes to the property. Let me show you one thing. It sometimes happens that the changes that you could revert changes, maybe accidentally, maybe thinking that this was not something you need, and later you think that basically reverting this was a mistake. ID could help you here. We have basically a local history feature that allows us to restore any such changes. So for example, here I open the local history for the entire project, and here is the change I just reverted. So I can basically revert it once again. And with this, here we are. The changes are again stored in my local changes. From here, I can safely commit it. Okay, so now I have two commits here, and somehow I missed that we are still in the master branch. Probably all such changes should have been done in a separate branch. So, and I now want to move those commits to different branch. How can I do that? So the easiest way could be to create a new branch on the same commit where we are now. Let's do this with the new branch operation here. We do not need to check that branch out because afterwards we will need to do something with master. So we will have to get back to master anyways. So let it be config option branch. And now I would like to reset master back to its origin. There are several ways to do this. Either right click in the exact commit where the header resides, or another one is basically checking out the origin master branch. While in Git, it would produce a detached head state. And doing so in ID, basically ID detects that there is no local branch, or if there is no local branch, it would create one. If there is already a local branch with this name, it would detect some issues and ask you what you would like to do with those commits. In my case, I don't want those two commits to be on master. So I just need to drop local commits. As you can see, master moved back to the origin reference. Mala, are there any questions at the moment? So we can probably answer them.
Hi, Dmitry. Yes, a couple of questions. Let's see how many of them we can answer now. The first question is by Tanju, and they've mentioned, I use GitHub and work from fork repos. I always need to reconfigure the remote branch names, and in my case, it's upstream main and my fork main. Can I preset this somewhere in the IDE?
So if I got the question right, in all four repositories, there are different names for the branch that should be used. Unfortunately, IDE does not support this, like it cannot help you to rename some of this automatically. However, as I noted, we rely on the command line git. It means that all the configurations from git configs are basically applied. So because we just call the git command, it follows all the git config. So probably what could be done is like all those naming should be configured in corresponding git config files of those repositories. And this way IDE would just follow the rules.
Okay, and I think Ruslan is doing a very good job, and he's answered almost all the rest of the questions. So I would let you move forward with your presentation, and probably we can take another break and answer the questions that come in.
Okay, thank you. So let's say I've done with doing this change, this config option, and now I need to put it back into the master branch somehow. So the common way of doing this is to submit a pull request. So since we are using GitHub, we have an integration for this. Basically, it lists all the existing pull requests and also allows us to create one more. So you can call it from here, or for example, we find action. Let's do this. From here, I select which branch the change should go in and what would be the source branch. So in my case, it's config option. This basically means that a new remote branch should be created for the pull request. Say I'm assigning myself here, and let's put some label. So create pull request. It asks me what branch I should use on the remote. The default is the same as the local one, but if you would like to change this. Okay, so the pull request is created. Here it is. If I refresh, here is my pull request. If I go onto the web interface, here is the pull request again. See all the fields are as I set in the ID. So let me probably pretend that I review this somehow here. Check the diffs, whatever. Let me put some comment here. Probably some common, not related, comment not related to any specific branch. Okay, so let's see how it looks in the IDE now. If I go here, we have exactly the same timeline with all the comments. And basically, if I go to the file, open diff for it, so we can see the comment here. I can reply from here. And again, so if I submit the review from IDE, let's see how it looks. It immediately shows up on the web. So as the reviewer noticed, we need some tests, and we did not do this for other properties. So let's implement a test. And Sorry for some delay. So it was a system property. So we did a system properties here, and let's add a test here. So it was proper test. Now, we are on the wrong branch now, so we need to get back to the branch basically where the changes. We are on the master where we deleted the change. So let's check out. Basically says that there are some changes. Yeah, those are local changes I just did. I don't need them, so I can force check out and drop those changes. So now when we are on the correct branch, let's add the test for the property. And let's assume it's always true. So here it is. Let's commit it. So here I would like to select this one. Also, you might notice there are several inversion files that basically get in the way somehow. It's a Maven-based project, so we don't need basically the IDEA project files in the Git. Sometimes it's useful to add them, but in this case, let me basically ignore them. I can do this by right-clicking the inversion node and selecting which ignore file to put them in. Since I would like to share this one with the other users of the basically project, let me choose the git ignore at the root level. This pop-up shows the relative paths from the project root. So here it is. And I won't be committing it with this one. You could see that the commit message was prefilled with something. As the text say, this text comes from the commit message template. I have one globally specified in my system. So all the git commits prefill this text, some sample text from a file. All the strings started with hashes will be basically removed on the commit. So let me fill in the commit message. I don't need this ID. Let's commit. So let's go to the log to see. Here it is. Here's my change. They probably don't want this to be a separate commit. And in this case, I would, for a cleaner history, it would be a good idea to basically merge this one with the previous one. So we can do this, for example, via interactive rebase, or by calling the squash commits directly from here. But for the sake of demo, let me show you how it does, how it's done from with the interactive rebase. So I'm calling the interactive rebase from here on the commit. Basically, that would be the first one, the series of commits I would like to rebase. So since I want to rebase these two, I'm selecting implement property. And here basically it shows the graph of commits. So there are only two, only this is why I click here, and I can select what to do. So since I would like to combine them, I can select squash, fix up. And the only difference is basically how the commit message is handled. If I select squash, commit message is combined. If I don't want both commit messages, I can either clear one from here, or I can do fix up from the dropdown and start rebasing. Here it is. Now we have implement property commit, and it has the test inside it. And there is another one on the remote that basically has no change with the test yet. So we just need to overwrite the commit on the remote, and to do this, we need to do a force push. So let me call a push dialog here. Here I can preview what options are actually pushed, or what commits are actually pushed. here I select the target. By default, it's the track branch. If I somehow want to push it to a different one, I can specify it here. Currently, I'm going to push to this branch, and I need to do a force push because I need to override that commit. ID works that is a dangerous operation because it could lead to data loss. So let me do force push. And here it is. Now, in pull requests, the commit list you see now the pull request has a different commit. So that commit I have just force pushed is already part of the review. So here it is the pretty change. Okay, and now I can probably mark this as resolved. And probably I'm okay with merging this one. So let me merge this request into master branch on the GitHub. So the pull request is merged. We can see this status here. And now we need to bring in the changes in the IDE. So since it was like in the master branch, let's switch in there and call the update project. Select rebase. I prefer this method, but it also depends on the workflow. And see, here we are. ID says that there are some files, some commits, and if I click view commits, we have a view that basically shows all the commits, and we can browse to see what exactly have been updated. Let me stop for a minute here and ask Mala if there are any additional questions I could answer at the moment.
Hi, Dmitry. So we have two questions that we would like you to answer. The first one is a way to open the git config file using the IDE.
Well, you can open it directly like any other file, but there is no shortcut for that. Also, since there is no shortcut for that, there would not be any completion. And you can edit it as in any other text editor, but I believe that the most value would be if IDE could autocomplete some options. Currently, it's not possible, unfortunately. However, there are like several configurations within IDE that could probably help you not to go to the git config if you need. So it all depends on what you want to achieve.
Right. The other question is, does the pull request work with GitLab as well? And we are seeing a lot of questions regard to what are the various version control systems that IntelliJ IDEA supports now. So this one is specific to GitLab. We also have on Bitbucket and a couple of others. So if you would like to answer on what are the version control systems which IntelliJ IDEA supports now, and probably you are thinking about implementing in near future.
Well, talking about version control system, it's primarily Git. Also, there are Subversion, Perforce, and Mercurial, but probably the question was not about version control systems, but services that provide Git hosting, like GitHub. So obviously we have GitHub. We have a similar thing for Space. We have reviews in JetBrains Space. We are working on GitLab support, similar to GitHub, so we would be able to do merge requests and review them the same way for GitLab. Unfortunately, it is not the same as GitHub, and it's not that easy to make one work with another, so we have to do a lot of work to make a similar experience. We do recognize Bitbucket, but GitLab currently is more popular, so we're working on it.
I would ask the last question for this break, and then I would let you move forward with your presentation. The question is, can you explain same with Perforce version control? The available plugin is too complex for the beginners.
Perforce? Sorry,
Yes.
what was the version control in this question? Perforce?
Probably I have to look up what does he mean by same. So I'll probably go and look at the context, and then I'll come back to you with the
Yeah,
same question.
I can answer it at the end. No problem. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, let me proceed. There's not that many of things I wanted to show you left here. Basically, I'll show you the basic workflow of committing, of reviewing pull requests, making pull requests, checking out the history here. Here is a console that I mentioned. It basically shows all the commands IDE does. When it does fetch, when it does checkout, add, whatever. So when you, for example, add something to commit, it calls git add, commit, checkout branches, so on. So if you are not sure what is the process is behind the scene or want to learn, or for some other reasons, you can always refer to here and see what IDE is doing. Also, since I talked a bit about committing, by default, currently, IntelliJ uses change lists. And even we kind of simplified it to a single node called change. I can still use change lists and move changes to different lists. What it helps with is basically dividing groups of changes into several for easier committing. However, the default way with Git is not change lists, it's stage. And we do have support for this. So if you'd like to use stage, you can go to settings, Git, and enable stage and area support. With this, instead of change lists, you'll see two nodes, staged and unstaged. And you will be able to add those, add specific changes. For example, if I do some change here, let's find this one. So right from here, when I stage is enabled, I can stage chunks right from the gutter by clicking here. So for example, I click stage, you can see that there is now stage something. Opening diff will show me what exactly is staged. So here is on the right side, the stage area. Here is like what's actually in the repository. Similar thing here. There are in the same files, there are unstaged changes. So here they are. And get ignored. So if you would prefer using stage to have more control, or if it better suits your workflow, you can go ahead and enable it in settings and use. Basically, it should not affect any workflows in general. Like all the features should be available both for staging and both for change lists, especially the pre-commit checks. They works for both. So it depends on whatever suits you most. Okay, so we talked a bit about committing. Let me basically reverse these changes. So I'm not interested in this XAMPP right now. What I also wanted to basically show you is like some working with history. So as version control is not always about doing new changes, it often is something about investigating who did what and why. I'm currently using 2013 nightly, and in this one, you can probably see after above each method, we have like an author name. It shows the name of the person, of the user who modified the most of the current methods. And clicking it opens annotations for the section, for the entire file. And clicking on there, like hovering there, shows you some tooltips with commit messages. Clicking there brings in the tool window with all the changes for that commit. And from there, you can open diffs if you need to drill down. And again, there you can annotate inside diffs and go on, drilling down and investigating when has the change appeared, why, probably if the commit message was well enough. Also, there are various comparison scenarios. So for example, I'm not only interested in what was done in exact commit, but I want to compare some states. For example, I would like to compare master and config branches between each other. I can select them in the tree, right-click, and compare branches. And with there, I can see the list of commits existing in one and not another, and vice versa. Currently, there is like only one difference with the merge commit. Let's see if there is more difference with other branches. For example, let's see another feature here and master here. Yeah, this time you can see there are more commits, and this view basically should make it easier to determine which has been merged where, which changes needs to go to some branch or not. So also if there are needs in some cherry picks, whatever. Speaking about cherry picks, so since we did some changes in the master branch, we have the pull request flow, we still have a release branch, and we probably need to bring those changes in there. So let's do this. Let's check out the release branch. I'm checking it out using the checkout on the remotes. You see now I have the local release branch that tracks the origin. And let's see what should I need to do to bring in the changes. So first of all, I need to bring in changes of the config options. So probably cherry picking is the best. But I don't want them as different commits. I want them as a single commit. So instead of calling cherry pick on exact list of commits, which would produce several commits in the release branch, I can go in here in the change browser, select all the commits I will actually need, including commits from different branches, and call the cherry pick selected changes action on the node containing the changes, or maybe on the specific files. But since I want all of them, let's do this. I'm selecting the entire node, doing cherry pick selected changes. And here we are. So here we see some unversioned files. They again stay in the way, so let's remove them. Here's again here because I did not commit the git ignore change. So, and here we see those basically changes from cherry picked commits. From here, I can review what they are, make sure they are correct, and I do need them in the release branch, and specify here that cherry picked option property 30 changes or something else like that. Since we are using staging area, you can see that with nothing staged, it does not allow me to commit, so I need to pick what I would like to stage. So let me stage only source changes, and again, I don't want it ignore to be part of this commit. Here we are. Now the release has this all the cherry picked as a single commit. And again, let me push it so that all the remotes have the required changes. Okay, a couple more things I wanted to probably to showcase here is like, again, comparing various states with something. So here we are, for example, to make sure that the changes were applied correctly, I can select the commit from another branch and compare the file from that with local state, for example. And here we can see if there is anything we need to apply in addition. We can also compare the before state. So for example, the state of file before that commit with the current state to see if there were, so if there are some changes introduced that commit with, and so on. And also what could be helpful in case of history is basically that you are not always interested in the entire history. You have various filters here. So I already showed you that we can filter by branches, we can filter by users here. For example, I only want to see mine commits, or I want to see some specific user commits only. I can sort by date or by specific path, for example, if I only want to see the sources folder change. If I need to be more granular, I can open the history of specific files, and it applies not only to history, or maybe entire folder, but also a local history could also be called for individual files or for individual folders. See, for example, this one. You see, it was reverted, then I added, once again. So basically, the later changes on the top. So this was where I reverted, then I restored from somewhere from local changes, from local history probably. Again, it was reverted, and again, I somehow added it with, this time with a getting comment. That probably would be it for me for now. Again, this is not everything that our integration has. We have a lot of small features that pop up when needed. For example, if something is misconfigured, ID should detect that and show you a prompt to fix this in place. For example, if your git user is not set, or some line endings issues, or whatever. Also, we try to help in place when it's possible with some notifications and hints. But again, it's like they are for all different case of scenarios. And today I wanted to go through some kind of basic one. So thank you for watching, for joining us today. If you have any questions, I welcome you and we'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dmitry. And I'll go back to the question that I mentioned earlier. So one of the developers, he wanted you to kind of explain everything that you did using Git with Perforce. So probably we cannot do that now, of course, because as you mentioned.
Perforce integration. First of all, Perforce is like a centralized version control system. It's not like Git one. It has a centralized server. It's like built on different principles. And its interface is quite different from what I've shown you. And while there are similar features, there are a lot of different ones. So we probably can do a showcase of Perforce some another time.
Absolutely.
But if you have any questions, you're welcome to our support or you track or whatever.
Yes, and it was great to see the Git window that you mentioned, that we can search through tags, through the branch's name, and a lot of other things. And I just wanted to mention that we also have a tab in Search Everywhere dialog box now, and which a lot of developers, they are not aware that they can use it to search for a lot of things there as well. And
yeah, thanks for this
next,
useful addition. Yeah, we really edited not long ago, but it's
yes,
handy to navigate to specific commits. Anyway, you ends up in the same tool window, but it's like
yes.
a shortcut to get there.
Yes, because a lot of developers, they use search everywhere, so that could be a good entry point. So the other question is there a quick way to navigate to the repository's root directory?
I don't think so, unfortunately. So basically, currently, our integration is built with idea that a project could consist of multiple repositories, and they all are kind of the same. What we can do, you can, in the commit view, you can group by the directory, and if there are several, and basically by the root, if there are several roots there, you will be able to see where those roots are in the commit view when grouped by repository. And from there, you should probably be able to go with select in and go to the corresponding folder. But there is no like a really easy button just to go to the head of the repository.
Makes sense. The other question is, I was working with the project now, and with Git, I always face an irritating message which is unable to update local ref when updating my branch. Does IntelliJ automatically address that?
Well, we try when it's possible. Unfortunately, without knowing the exact reason, it's not possible to say if we do address this or not. Well, the reason sometimes it happens that Git is not fast enough to release locks on files, and some operations can fail. Then we basically try running it sometimes. But again, in most cases, errors with locking or whatever requires user interaction somehow. So we do try to help, but I cannot guarantee that in all those cases cover every scenario. No, unfortunately not. But we try when we can.
I get that part, because there's so many things that can be done on the command line, but when you go to user interface, if you try to have everything in the UI, it makes it really overwhelming to use. And so there has to be a balance to do a lot of things. So that's how it is. So the next question is support coming for partial clones and sparse checkout? The user has mentioned a specific case. They mentioned that my use case is I want to work on a GitHub PR in a monorepo and only have checked out those relevant files or folders and not clone the entire monorepo.
Yeah, I'm familiar with sparse checkout and partial clones. They're great features added to Git recently, rather recently. To be honest, IntelliJ, all the IntelliJ family lives in a monorepo as well, so we are struggling with monorepo as well. And yes, we have some ideas and some plans to prove that as well to help everyone like us. So while I don't have any specific dates to share, yeah, we do have those features on the radar, and they can be helpful in case of monorepos indeed, as well as work trees, as well as other features that help you to speed up Git operations.
And Dmitry, thank you so much for the demonstrations. There was, I think, multiple users wanted to see cherry picking, and you demonstrated that quite well. So that was good. There's also a lot of thank you messages. I will watch this and other videos and post my questions later. And I was always thought if reading all the Git documentation would be a good use of my time as and coming developer, because I see that question often as well, because we know that working with certain tools like a version control system is important, but knowing how to use them is that will consume a lot of time, because every developer would have to see how it works. And this is, I think, where IntelliJ idea fits in really well, because it doesn't get into your flow. You are familiar with the UI, you are already using the IDE, and you just need to know a few other commands to get up and working with the additional tool. So
yeah, basically that's what we are trying to solve here. Yeah, to give our users a way, if they are not comfortable with other tools or with command line, if they want something more familiar. Yeah, so, and we always try to make things as intuitive as it's possible. It's like with Git, it's sometimes tricky and it requires you to read something. But anyway, we usually try to streamline operations where it's possible.
Right, and we have Jamie. He mentioned that he would be switching to IntelliJ now after watching the presentation.
I'm very pleased. You're very welcome. If you have any issues, let us know. We'll fix it.
And Dmitry, probably the last question before I let you go. I know a lot of developers, they are more comfortable using the command line as opposed to using version control in the IDE because probably they are faster. But would you like to suggest them some features which I would say the star features or the hidden gems of version control system support in IntelliJ, which they should be looking at? Probably like the diff window because that's what I
Yes.
really like, and and any others. Of course, you are the boss here.
So for those who prefer command line, we acknowledge it's completely fine. It's all the same on all the machines. You don't need to know any concepts other than command line. It's completely fine, but there are definitely things that are way better in IDE, which are primarily annotations with Git authorship, which are, as Mala said, diffs. They are much better than diffs on the command line. So I have mentioned this, but you can configure IDEA as like a default diff for Git as like command line tool. So for example, if you just call diff from git diff whatever, it would open your ID from IDEA with all this logic and all the highlighting when possible. So you can try looking this way. Again, merge tooling is like kind of extension of diff. It can do more than Git itself. For example, for simple conflicts, we can auto-resolve them, which Git does not do. So probably those that are around code, which is easier to read and manage inside IDE. Or commit operations, like if you would like pull, push, commit from the command line, it's fine, but I'm pretty sure that reading code is better in the UI.
Absolutely. And if anyone is not convinced, I would definitely recommend them using the merge, resolving the merge conflict on the command line and using IntelliJ ideas, VCS support, and probably that would convince them.
Yep. Yes. I hope so. I hope so.
So thank you once again, Dmitry. Thanks for the presentation, and thanks everyone for attending the session, asking the question. Thanks a lot, Ruslan. He was amazing in answering all the questions, and he answered most of the questions. So I kind of had to pick the ones that he answered earlier and ask the questions to you. So thanks, everyone. It was a great session, and do tune in for the next session that we have on 17th of November. And we are talking about JUnit by Christian Steen. He works with the core team on the JUnit. So until next time. Oh, before I say until next time, do you have any closing remarks, Dmitry?
Well, develop with pleasure.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you for joining.
That was short and sweet. Thank you so much. So until next time, bye.
Bye.